Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. This one's going to be a little different than what I usually do. I've been getting a lot of questions about what I carry, what tripod head do I use, what backpack do I use, and everything like that. So as I was getting ready for my next trip, I thought that this would be a really good time to sit down and just do a video about everything that is what is inside this bag and what I use and everything like that. Now I'm going to cover everything that I use for wildlife photography, everything I use for wildlife videography, and everything that I use for vlogging and for YouTube. So it's going to be very comprehensive. Now to start out, let's talk about the two tripods that are strapped to the outside of this. I'll start over here. And this is going to be my vlogging tripod. It is a GITZO G1158. It folds down pretty nice. Right up top, I have a Really Right Stuff. I believe this is a BH30, which is just perfect for my vlogging camera and my vlogging lens, which I'll get to in a little bit. Now, if you're out there and you want to get a vlogging tripod, I do not suggest this one. It is not sturdy enough. The legs are too spindly, and I have definitely dropped my camera a few times because the wind caught it or it just wasn't set up absolutely perfect. It is definitely usable. I fear that I'm gonna break a camera or a lens, but it is what I have right now. Now, I'd love to upgrade this year, maybe to something like a ProMediaGear, their smallest one, just because I know it'd be way more sturdy and everything like that. But for now, this is what I have, and it is obviously what I'm going to use, continuing until I do upgrade it. But if you're out there looking for one, do not buy this one. Now let's move on. I'm going to put this one on the ground just to get it out of the way. But let's move on to my main tripod, which you guys might have seen the review video. I just posted it. And this is the ProMediaGear TR424L. I'm going to put my bag on the ground, just to make some space. Okay. So this is the ProMediaGear TR424L. If you saw my review video, you will know that I am absolutely in love with this tripod. It is absolutely fantastic. The size of the legs are absolutely phenomenal. It is the most sturdy tripod I've ever used in my entire life. And if you did catch the head review, which is not this one, you'll know that I was trying to use a gimbal. It wasn't really working out. And I ended up just buying this one. So I've not used this head yet on a trip. Obviously, I am very confident in it. What this head is a Sachtler FSB-8 MK II. And this is an absolute monster for what I do. And it is what you would call a fluid head. I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know if you could really call me a photographer anymore. I think I'm transitioning way more into video and video use. I don't think I'm a cinematographer or anything like that. Maybe videographer at the absolute basic, but I've noticed that all of my gear is slowly transitioning into more of a video focus, which is why I wanted this video head. Now, I have wanted this video head for a very long time. I really was putting off buying it. It is not cheap. I paid just under $2,000 for this head alone, which if you are in the photography world, you will think that is very expensive for a head. But if you are in the videography world, you know that is probably on the low end. Fluid heads get very expensive very fast. Now this head holds about 26 pounds, and my camera lens that I'll get to in a little bit, the absolute maximum that it ends up weighing is about 14 pounds, but I wanted something that was a little bit overkill, especially if someday I want a little bit heavier setup. Now the big reason I wanted this one is it has 7 different settings for my drag on my pan and my tilt, which is absolutely fantastic. Most other ones don't have that much customizability, so this was definitely #1 on my list. If there's enough of you out there that want me to do a review video like I did on other things for it, please let me know. Right now I don't have any plans on it, but if enough people want it, I'll end up doing it. All right, now let's get inside this camera bag. So we open it up, and then this is exactly how I have it set up for me. So right off the bat, I have these LensCoat protectors. These are rain protectors. I have it right on top here. This one's for my vlogging camera, and then this is for the big camera. I almost always have these in the bag because you're never quite sure when it's going to rain, especially out in the wild. I don't want to be caught out there and have like a rainstorm. Now, most of my equipment is waterproof, but not all of it is, and I don't really want to fully test it when it's like a monsoon. So these are always really great to have. All right, next up, we have the vlogging camera. So this is a Canon R5 and a Canon 15-35 2.8. Now, for some people, this might be really overkill, and honestly, it is. You don't need an R5 to shoot YouTube videos. Honestly, most people on YouTube use GoPros, and it looks absolutely fantastic. But one thing that you will see in this entire kit is that I am a maniac and a moron, and I like to do things over and above what they ever need to do. Now, one of the big reasons that I use this camera is that if my main camera, which we will get into in a second, goes down, I can always use this one for all of my filming and all of my wildlife. It is an absolutely amazing backup secondary camera. Now, I have this SMALLRIG cage just like bolted to it, and honestly, it's kind of crappy, but it does its job. And all that is I mount like my microphones and everything like that to it. That way I'm not using the hot shoe mount, which I'm not a huge fan of using because I'm always afraid it's gonna like damage it. I don't know if it does. I've never really had one damaged, but I would feel just a lot better mounting it to like a piece of metal or something like that. All right, moving on. So I also carry a Canon 70-200 2.8. I don't use this a ton. It is an absolutely fantastic lens. It's really little. I mean, if anyone knows the EF version, it is way bigger than this, but it's just so little and pretty light that it's so much easier to just tuck inside my bag right here and carry pretty much everywhere I go. All right, next up is my microphone. This is a Rode VideoMic NTG. I have this dead cat on there. It just comes right off. Since I'm doing almost everything outside all of the time, I always just usually keep this dead cat. That way I don't have to run into issues of noise or wind noise or anything like that. I just am ready to edit for it, and it ends up usually working out pretty good. I'm liking this microphone. I'm not in love with the microphone. I'm probably going to end up upgrading that sometime this year to something a little bit better, because one thing that I definitely think my videos lack slightly is really good ambient noise. This does a pretty good job. I definitely want something a little bit better though, so keep your eyes out. I'll probably be upgrading this at some point this year. Now let's take out the big lens and the big camera, and I'm just gonna put my bag on the ground while I talk about this. This is probably what most people are interested in me talking about. So this is a Canon 400mm 2.8. This is the EF version. And then this is a Canon R3. Now, most wildlife photographers you'll see usually don't use a 400mm 2.8. It's usually at least a 500mm, sometimes a 600, and sometimes even into the 800. And then what else you'll notice is that wildlife videographers usually do not use prime lenses. They are usually using a zoom of some sort, which is probably a much better idea. Videographers out there watching this are probably saying, wow, you're an idiot if you're using a prime lens. And I don't disagree with you. I probably am, but I am what someone might say is a purist. I am always after the absolute best picture quality and video quality and sharpness. Now you might be asking yourself, why am I using 400mm? There are many lenses out there that are zooms that can see much farther, that are lighter and that are cheaper. I personally think that the 400mm 2.8 is the absolute perfect wildlife lens if you are dedicated to using a prime. And hear me out. So right off the bat, without anything else, I have a full frame camera and 400mm. Now, obviously, wildlife isn't always active when the light is absolutely perfect. Sometimes it's before sunrise, sometimes it's really cloudy, and sometimes it's right after sunset. So your lighting isn't always perfect. Now, having the 2.8 is absolutely invaluable. I am able to continue to shoot earlier than other people and later than other people. Plus, I think that the visuals of the 2.8 are fantastic. I love how the 2.8 looks. It gives me really good separation from my subject to the background. If my subject is within a herd, I can get more separation at the 2.8. All right, now in my bag, I'm not going to show you this, but what I also do carry is 2 teleconverters. So this one is a 1.4 teleconverter, and it just goes right in between here. And with the 1.4 teleconverter, that makes this a 560 millimeter f4 lens, which is right in between the 500 and the 600. And all I have to do is throw on this little teleconverter and I essentially get there. Now the quality takes a very, very, very slight hit, but for the most part, it is crispy. It looks fantastic. I don't see any real effect on my autofocus or anything like that. It's still weather sealed, everything. So adding just a little teleconverter onto my 400 gets me essentially to 600 millimeters, which is a really good lens. And then I have a 2-time teleconverter, which gets this to 800 millimeters at an f5.6 aperture, which is the same as the prime that they sell. So between this lens, this teleconverter, and this teleconverter, I essentially have 3 different lenses and 3 different focal lengths. I have my 2.8 and my shorter if I want something a little bit more environmental, or if the light's a little bit challenging, or I can get all the way to 800 millimeters if it's a nice bright sunny day and I have more than enough light, and maybe I want to stop down to what I think is the perfect aperture for that, which is about 7.1. Stopping onto that is really crispy, really beautiful. A lot of my photos and a lot of my footage is done that way, and I don't really see that much of a degradation in the optical quality at all. Now, the reason that I use a Canon R3 and not the R5 that I use for my vlogging is 100% video based. The R5 is great for video, don't get me wrong, it's gorgeous. Now the R3 is an absolute workhorse, especially for video. Now if you're a videographer and you're watching this, you're probably gonna cringe a little bit when I say this because it's absolutely insane and it's way overkill. But the reason I got the R3 is so I could shoot 6K 60 frames per second in a RAW codec. So I shoot RAW, it is almost 2 gigabytes per second. So it is a ton of data and it's absolutely gigantic. Canon is known for having really like fat codecs. So there's a ton of information in there. It takes up a ton of hard drive space and it's absolutely insane, but it makes my editing, my videos that much better. On the photo side, it is absolutely no slouch. The autofocus is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's somewhere around 30 megapixel. I'm honestly not quite sure. I don't really worry about megapixel that much. I don't do a lot of cropping, so it really doesn't matter whether I'm taking a photo with this or the R5 or R6. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't really care about that. What I do care about is the video capabilities, which is why I am using this absolute beast. Now you might notice that this is an EF lens and this is an RF body, and obviously I needed to adapt that. And that leads me into what I believe is the most important piece of equipment that I personally carry, and that is this EF to RF adapter. Now, if you shoot video, you know what I'm talking about, but if you don't shoot video, this might be news to you. When you shoot video, you don't have all the flexibility and the luxuries that a photographer has. You obviously have your ISO, you have your aperture, but your shutter speed needs to be essentially 2 times your frames per second. So when I'm shooting in 60 frames per second, I set my camera to 125th of a second. Now that's a rule that can be bent a little bit, but I generally always keep it exactly there. I like how it looks. I like when I slow it down. It just looks really good to me. But with that comes issues, especially when it's really sunny. So I have my aperture, which I'm a psycho and I like to shoot wide open. So I'm always shooting essentially at 2.8, and then my ISO only goes down to 100. And at 125th of a second, obviously, you know, outside, that is going to be extremely bright. So that comes in the variable neutral density. Now, on most lenses, you will screw it on the end. You'll get a filter, you'll put it on the end, and bam, you're good to go. But this lens, you cannot put filters on the end because the end is absolutely gigantic. It is a huge piece of glass. You'll never be able to get a filter on there. Now, Canon made this EF to RF adapter that actually has a variable neutral density built into it. Now, this little piece of equipment makes all of my videos possible. It makes it possible for me to shoot this at 2.8 and have all of my great looking footage. And all I do is I just have this little dial right up top that makes the variable neutral density, which is essentially just two polarizers moving in tandem in different directions, brighter or darker. So I'll be able to set it. My image is way too bright. I spin the dial a little bit, it makes it darker, and I can absolutely perfectly dial in my exposure every single time. Now, the problem with that is that this is EF. They have completely abandoned the EF mount. They are not making any more. This is the version 2 of the 400mm. They do have a version 3 in EF that I'm really hoping to upgrade to sometime this year just for weight purposes alone. But because I will lose this adapter, I can almost never go to the RF glass right now. It's just not an option. I would either have to not shoot at 2.8 anymore. I would either have to get away from DSLR or mirrorless bodies and get an actual cinema camera that has neutral densities actually built into it, or a company will have to come out with a variable neutral density that goes in this slot right here, which I really, really hope that they do. Currently, no one does, but if they do, I'll be able to get an RF piece of glass and put in my little neutral density right here. All right, moving back onto the bag, we are back inside, and you'll notice that now I have nothing inside here. It is completely empty, and I got everything out. Now, what I do have here is for my vlogging, and then these are my neutral density filters that actually go on the end of my vlogging camera. So just like my big prime, I need to cut the light out because I want to shoot at the aperture that I want to shoot at. Now these are the Peter McKinnon Signature 2. I think they're okay. I'm probably gonna get flamed over it, but I think they're okay. I really think the B&Ws might be better quality than these, but I got them for this absolutely fantastic storage solution where the B&Ws don't. You just unthread this here, and then you have your lens and this nice little rubber boot on the end of it that you can use as a lens cover or something like that. It makes it way easier because they're pretty much indestructible now. They're metal. You can just tuck them in there, tuck them in your bag, and they're pretty much good to go. But that's really all I carry on here because I don't want to take up too much space. Moving on to this bag right here, which is something that I do use a lot of. Now, right off the bat, I have my little Rode, I think it's just called the VideoMic. It's really little. I use it for my vlogging camera for ambient sounds and things like that. And then I have batteries. So I use these really nice ThinkTank cases to hold my batteries. These are for the R3. And then I use the same thing for the R5 batteries, which is just a really nice way to keep everything organized. And then obviously, I'm using the microphone right now, and I'm using it for this camera, but I use the DJI wireless mic. They just go in here. They work great. I haven't had any issues with them so far. I think sound quality is pretty good. I just tuck this little thing into my pocket, and then I plug my microphone right into it, which I'm using right now. Hopefully it sounds pretty good. And then because I'm an absolute psychopath, and I shoot all of my wildlife in 6K 60 RAW, that also means that I have to have a lot of memory card space. Now, in a perfect world, I would really like to keep all of my data on one card. I do not like changing cards. In the wedding industry, I never change a card. We just have big enough ones to hold everything from the entire day. And unfortunately, when I'm shooting all of that data, they do not make a card big enough. So this is the PolarPro Slate II, something like that. And what it is, it's a piece of metal, and it's really nice, but it also holds all of these cards. So I have these Angel Birds that are terabyte, and then I have two 512 gigabyte SanDiscs, and it is completely weather resistant. It's waterproof, and it just keeps everything stored really nicely and big. So I know that if I'm gonna drop it or lose it, I don't want something little that's easy to drop. I always just keep it up here. On some trips, I'll fill all these cards in one day, and sometimes I don't, but it's just really nice having it handy. And then the only other thing I have up here are something that stays in my bag all year round, and that is hand warmers. I hold a lot of hand warmers. And then what else I hold is these great Ben's mosquito and bug wipes. Now honestly, I keep both of these in my bag year round because I live in Wisconsin, and you never quite know if you're gonna need one or the other. Last year, I did a trip for waterfowl, and it was crazy warm, and I had like 60 ticks on me, and it was absolutely disgusting. And then I did a trip like 2 weeks later, and we got like a foot of snow. So you're never quite sure exactly when you're gonna need them. So I just keep them in my bag at all times. If someone else needs them, I'm able to give them out. The reason I like these Ben's wipes is that they're really easy to just shove in your pocket. You don't have to worry about carrying an aerosol can. Aerosol cans are also really wasteful. They don't always get on your skin. You always have to spray it. But these wipes, you just rip it open, you put it wherever that you want. You don't have overspray. It doesn't get all over your stuff. It's just way easier, and these Ben's ones work really great. I love them a lot. So if you're in an area that has a lot of bugs like me, really look into these. They're absolutely fantastic. All right, now let's talk about the bag. This is an FstopGear Suka. Now this thing is built like a tank. I absolutely love this bag. It might be 5 or 6 years old. I'm not quite sure when I got it. One thing I don't do is I don't keep anything in this pocket right here because I do throw this on the ground a lot, and I don't really want anything breaking. I could probably put my hand warmers and everything in this because I don't have to worry about that. But for the most part, I keep this absolutely empty. But you'll not notice that there's almost any marks on it at all. It is made out of this really beautiful ripstop fabric. It is held up extremely well. I'm really a big fan of FstopGear. They make absolute great product. One of the great selling points on FstopGear, especially these like mountaineering bags, is that obviously, let's get this opened. But these inserts that you see in here, they come out. So you can customize the bag exactly how you want. Now, this is like the master Cine insert or something like that. It's the biggest one possible. It's the only one that allows me to have my camera on the lens with the lens hood on it, that I can just tuck it in here, put it down, and then zip it up. It's pretty much the biggest one that they make, and it makes it a lot easier to take the lens in and out, especially when you're shooting a lot and you're moving around a lot. I don't want to always have to either take my body off or flip the lens hood around or something like that. It just makes it so much easier. Now, one thing that you'll notice is that these bags are not cheap. You have to think of it as an investment in your gear. But if you're in the market for a bag that is going to last a very long time, that's going to protect your gear, really you need to look in the FstopGear. They are absolutely fantastic. I will recommend them to anybody. And then just on the sides here, I have a little pouch that's actually from FstopGear that attaches via MOLLE. And then that is a good spot for the neutral density or something else that I like to tuck in there. And then the other side just has a knife on it, which is right here. And then that's attached via MOLLE too. That way, if I need a knife or anything, it just comes right out. It is very sturdy and just tucks right in there. It's always on there. Obviously, I am not trying to fight off ninjas or evil people. But if you ever need a knife for anything, or you need to cut anything, it's just really nice having it nice and handy right there. But that's it, you guys. It's everything that I carry for wildlife photography and all of my YouTube. I hope you guys found that entertaining. If I missed anything, or if you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to let me know. Drop a comment, ask your questions. Maybe I'll do this once a year where I'll just update everyone on what I'm using and what I'm carrying and what's working for me and what's not working for me. And maybe someday they'll make a neutral density that I'll be able to talk to you guys about that fits right in there. But for now, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. I can't wait to show you guys more adventures. Hopefully I'll have those coming out pretty soon, and I will see you guys next time.